Boy, that really, really is bad, isn't it? I had the microphone off for approximately 5 minutes. So that is rough. So I'm going to go through the whole introduction again. Damn it. All right. So today's video is going to be about Section 8 for disabled HUD housing programs. And today, today we're going to be talking about some of the policies and procedures that are involved in that. And so what we're going to kind of address today is Supreme Court cases, whether or not you actually have the. I can't believe I just did that for 5 minutes, and should have looked at the comments about it not being live. Y'all couldn't hear me. So, anyways, we're going to be talking about that for those of you that are struggling to get housing with Section 8 and you have a disability, those that have been discriminated, and also some of the reasonable accommodations for this. So as first introductions, my name is Jay. I am a Section 8 consultant. I am not to be confused with a HUD specialist. I have nothing to do with the Housing Authority. I wouldn't want to work for them, and I don't work for HUD itself. I'm an independent agent. Work with thousands of clients every year, and as you may see at the very top comment, there's information about me, my company. We're incorporated, so here in the state of Texas, serve all 50 states. All right, so we're going to talk about case law. We're going to talk about disability and what are the different types of disabilities to be considered. So let's kick it off by saying that, you know, when disabilities, there are two types in the opinion of housing authorities are going to consider, and that's those that they've been sued for, and then they have to, once you have a specific type of diagnosis, they cannot decline you and say, oh, well, you don't really have a disability, and then there are those things you could bring up that you leave it at the judgment of a worker that's probably making a nickel an hour, and it's their job to act a lot like an insurance company. If you don't have one of those pre-qualified things they've been sued for, then they're going to deny, unless you fight them. So we're talking about the disabilities that are too weak to do anything with, and you leave it at the judgment of the housing authority, and the ones that go, well, you know, that she's got a qualified disability, there's nothing we can do about it. So who is a person with a disability? So we're going to talk about federal non-discrimination laws to define a person with a disability to include, one, an individual with a physical or mental impairment, and here's the key word, this substantially limits one or more major life activity. Now, I want you to pay close attention to what that says, major life activities. So let's make a distinction. We have Social Security Administration that gives out checks to people with disabilities. We're not talking about that federal agency today. We're talking about HUD. HUD is a different federal agency. Its idea and concept of what a disability is much different than the requirements of you going and get a disability check. And in order to deal with HUD and the Housing Authority and so on, it is not based on whether or not you have a Social Security disability check. Yes, if you've got one, that's a great pre-qualifier, but you're not required. So back to what it says. A physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. So there's a lot of things that come under that, and we're going to talk about that. Now, we're going to divide it into two different types of person with disabilities. An individual with a record of such impairment or an individual that is regarded as having such impairment. So an individual with a record of impairment is clearly a person that's been to a doctor or professional that has a PhD, and they've said they clearly, have the impairment. Let's talk about the other aspect, and I'm going to frame it up this way. So you've got Sally, she's under the bridge, she's homeless, she's schizophrenic, but you can clearly see she's schizophrenic, but unfortunately, she's not being treated, okay? So that is an individual as regarding having such impairment. Clearly, everybody knows that person's got some emotional problems, all right? So in general, a physical or mental impairment includes, but is not limited to, examples of conditions such as orthopedic. Now, let's discuss the orthopedic real quick. Those of you that are suffering from back injuries, I believe they call it degenerative disc disease, or what you call a slip disc. That is a pre-qualifier. Why did that happen? A lady in California that was around 56 years old, was a former attorney. She fell out. She became disabled. She quit practicing law. The housing authority told her she was crazy. And despite her not even being able to stand up because of the pain in her back and the disc disease she had, slip disc, well, she took their ass to federal court. She sued them and she won. And so for the foreseeable future, that is one of the things that they cannot deny, and that's usually what happens. The housing authorities play the game, and then they push it too far, and they end up going after somebody that is either an attorney or other people with financial means that will simply ride them all the way to the Supreme Court about it, and then they win, which is exciting because it's a good deal. Visual, low vision, no vision, completely blind. Speech impediments, and many others that go with that. Hearing impairment, slow of hearing, hard of hearing, but to the point, that clearly it would impact your day-to-day life. Like, for instance, you may not hear the traffic passing by, so you step in the road and you get ran over. Mental illness, there are a number of pre-qualifiers like bipolar, schizophrenia. However, those that are suffering from simple depression, access depression number one, that would be left to the judgment of the housing authority. If you had long-term depression, access depression number two, that would be considered likely a primary illness, mental illness. Drug addiction and alcoholism could be considered under certain circumstances and would greatly affect your health, mental health, or physical health, okay? Such impairments are readily observable, while others may be invisible. Observable impairments may include, but are not limited to, blindness or low vision, deafness, being hard of hearing, mobile limitations, up and down the stairs, up and down the elevator, getting around the house, getting in the bathtub, and other types of impairments with observable symptoms or effects, such as intellectual impairments. Now, that's not for those of you that failed kindergarten, but I'm suggesting that people that have a low acuity, that may be on spectrum, have Asperger's, these are all automatic qualifiers, including some forms of autism, again, back to on spectrum. Neurological impairments, e.g., and as I mentioned, stroke, Parkinson's disease, cerebral palsy, MS, MD, and we could go on with the acronyms about the many types of permanent disabilities that are out there, including epilepsy and brain injury. And then again, mental illness and other diseases and conditions that affect major life activities or bodily functions. So I'm going to stop there for just a moment, and I'm going to cue this, and then I'm going to take a look at the comments real quick because I see you guys are hammering away at commenting. So let's see. I can't hear you. We already answered that. Tony McMillan, no sound, so we fixed that. Queen Joe says can't hear you. No, we fixed it. Might be muted. Okay, so I'm going to keep going down since we solved the hearing problem for me, the talking problem. Felicia Cooley, hey Jay, I like everyone. I like everyone. Okay, so she was saying she couldn't hear me. I'm going to get past all the parts where you couldn't hear me. Yolanda Gray, finally, okay. Tony McMillan, all right, you're ready to go. Rosamund Mitchell, hello, can you please record or redo the video? I can't hear you. Okay, so anyways, I think this video may end up doing badly because the first 5 minutes are out, so I suspect a lot of people will try to watch the video and think the whole thing has been blanked. So I'm just going to stick with it for now, despite the video being bad the first 5 minutes. All right, so I'm continuing to comment. So the major life, so we're going to go on to major life activities, which include activities that are important to daily life, like major life activities, walking, speaking, hearing, seeing, breathing, working, learning, performing manual tasks, and caring for yourself. There are other major life activities that are not on this list, but that leaves it again at the care of the housing authority. Major life activities include the operation of major bodily functions, such as functions in the immune system, special sense organs, skin, normal cell growth, digestive issues, bowel, bladder, neurological, brain, respiratory, circulatory, cardiovascular, limbic, and reproductive systems. So we get on to a few more things, and we're going to break it down a little bit simpler for the rest of the video. Under regulations that are implemented by the ADA amendments 2008, some types of impairments will in virtually all cases be found to impose substantial limitation on major life activity, resulting in determination of disability. So I'm going to stop it there, and I want to read you a little bit of case law. I'm not really going to do that. I'm going to mention some cases. So we had Brandon versus Abbott, 1998. Court holds that HIV infection qualifies as a disability under American Disability Act. Wright versus Universal Marine Corp. In this case, the court revisits the issue, and they said that essentially that his employment, they had employment discrimination based on a back injury. Cleveland Murphy versus Parcel Service. Court explains the term impairment substantially limits a major activity under a Disability Act because he had low vision. Court clarifies definition of disability under American. Well, anyways, 1999 they redid the Disability Act. So there are, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to link up some of these case law for you guys, and I'm going to put it in the main video, and you can take a look at yourself. There's no reason for me to read that going forward. All right, so now what we're going to move on is persons, rights of persons with disability in a federally assisted housing program, and then we're going to talk about types of housing. Federal law makes it illegal to otherwise qualified individuals with a disability solely because of his or her disability to be excluded from participation in, denial of benefits, or be subjected or subjugated to discrimination on any program or activity receiving federal assistance. Any individual with a disability who is also otherwise qualified from the program, service, or activity is covered under Section 504. To be qualified means an individual meets the essential, and it says essential, not the massive, not the sophisticated, but the essential eligibility requirements, including, and for example, income requirements for tenancy. If the program is a housing program provided by eligibility requirements that are non-discriminatory, can be met without a reasonable accommodation or auxiliary hearing aids and other such services necessary for effective communication. So to put this very simply, any portion of any housing or any voucher where you have given over documentation from your doctor and then they deny it, then they are definitely violating you under 504, Section 504, 2008 Disability Act. And of course, we can get much deeper into that, but I don't think it would be necessary for this video. So now that we got through the fast part of this, so let's talk about the housing aspect of this and how to utilize it properly. A lot of you are going to the housing authority, you're applying. So if you are 62 and older, you would want to request disability, and to do that, that would be Section 811. That's subsection of U.S. Title Code. And Section 811 would be, for those of you that have a qualified disability. Qualifying disability requires the housing authority to hand you a form. That form you would be taking to your doctor. There are 4 check boxes, okay? And he either confirms or denies whether or not your disability can last a year, a couple of years, or for a lifetime, or that you have no disability whatsoever. It would be good to have that conversation with your doctor in most cases to let them know, one, this form is not an indication that you're trying to apply for a Social Security disability check. Okay. Doctors get very weird when you hear Social Security check. Why? Because they go sit in the court, talk to a judge. You waste a lot of their time without the ability to pay them for all that time. So when you want to utilize a disability in respect to HUD, it's important you let your doctor know in advance. This is not about a disability check, that you're simply there trying to get them to check one box, sign the bottom, verify, and that you're trying to prove a disability to assist you with housing, not a flipping check. You go in there and you start talking about disabilities to a doctor, his natural inclination is going to be that you're there to drag him through the court system for the next 3 years while you prove a case. Do not try to mix these two together. Again, HUD and Social Security Administration, 2 different agencies. So make sure your doctor is very clear about what you're doing before you hand him that form. Otherwise, he's going to push you right out the door. All right, moving on from that, when you are 62, 61, so 18 to 61, that would put you elementally in Section 811. If you're 62 and older, that would put you in the program of Section 202. If you're going to look at this as a supportive housing situation for mental illness and so on, and you may be dealing with homelessness or imminent homelessness, you would want to approach CES, which is Coordinated Entry System, operated by COC, which is the Continuum of Care, under the program called Housing First, and they offer permanent supportive housing, which is a good equivalent to the version of Section 811. In other words, a person with disabilities under the age of 62, and you would be able to utilize you would have a disability and would be able to qualify for permanent supportive housing, which pays for the vast majority of your rent. Nice part about CES and COC is that they do issue vouchers, and they're not literally connected to the housing authority. So COC and CES can be administered at a different location in the housing authority. It can grant you an emergency housing voucher. And the nice part is it can do it not in 15 years. It can do it in 30 to 60 days. See, a lot of you guys You've learned about Section 8 since you were a kid, right? Everything's a voucher, go to the housing authority. It's the HUD, it's the Section 8. Well, there are other systems out there that administer vouchers, the same vouchers, but in a different manner that most of you are not aware of. And so what you're doing is you're going to the mall when you could simply go to the shop down the street and get a voucher without sitting there and waiting 15 years if you have the right criterias in place. And you can pass an assessment. An assessment is just a really cool way of saying, I'm going to read out your application and ask you questions. So when you go to housing authority, you have an application, you fill it out. With an assessment, they're filling it out. That's the best way I can make that distinction between an application and an assessment. There's really no difference. It's just that one person's filling out for you versus the other. So with that being said, there is a third venue out there, which is called LIHTC, or tax credit properties, which are subsidized by the United States government. The landlord may have 100 units. He may say, hey, I'd like to get tax credits, credits against his taxes. And in return, he will, for the next 40 years, allocate 30 of 100 units. And those 30 units may be allocated to those that are low income and disabled. And in that respect, you guys don't need to go to the housing authority. You don't need to go to the continuum of care. You would apply directly at the subsidized property. They would give you a standard application, and then they would give you a housing authority, a shorter version of the housing authority application, which asks about your age, income, and disability. And then those two would be put together and then shot off to the housing authority. As long as it's approved, you thus have a place you can live. But it's not a voucher, is it? It's what they call tenant-based housing. Now, the other arena of this, most of you know what project-based housing is, okay? So PBH, but TBH, tenant-based housing. So what are the difference between PBH and TBH? Tenant-based and project-based. Project-based means the housing authority owns the building and is doing low income. When it's TBH, it means it's a private landlord, tenant-based housing. So they make that distinction. Another distinction is usually when the housing authority is involved in owning a building, things go very badly. I think that anytime we associate the word with project-based housing, it usually ends up where you're dealing with crack dealers, prostitutes, gang activity, and everything else. And besides that, I've often warned you guys about if the housing authority is going to issue you a voucher, do you really want them to be the ones paying your bills plus being your landlord? So the first time you say something stupid to the people at the housing authority and you get in an argument with them, or you're one of these neurotic people that like to email them and complain about, bitch about everything, do you really want them to be also your landlord that's not going to renew your lease and hold you over the barrel? Now, I'm not suggesting that clients are going to do that, but I can tell you, most of my clients' experience with housing authorities have not been very good. And so you making them, first pay your bills and then also own the building and being your landlord is a terrible idea. However, I'm not going to discourage that. I mean, for those who want to do it, but I certainly will never consult on any case where somebody say, hey, I want to go live in projects. No, tell you what, here's your money back. Go talk to somebody else. Okay. I'm not going to send you out there for that. I don't suggest that for family or any normal person. Okay. Not even for people that just got out of prison. I don't suggest it. Okay. So beyond that, I'm going to take a look, see if there's any further comments. Again, it's a live video, guys. You're welcome to ask questions. That's the whole point here. But it looks like everybody's just watching carefully. So Queen Joe says, Jay, do I need to make an appointment? Well, these days, most people have to make an appointment with me. In the early days, as many of y'all know, I did this for years for free. And that was back when it was small, small peanuts. And I was able to help people on a very personal level. As time goes on, a lot of time, decades, we've advanced. And, now I deal with too many people. Well, it's not too many people. It's just that it's not equitable without an appointment. I have to use booking software in order to keep up with things because otherwise it would be pure chaos. So I would suggest to you, Queen Joe, the best way to get me is definitely make an appointment. It's not offensive. In fact, those 20-minute consults that I offer people, I offer it at pretty much bargain brand. I think it's like $45. Okay. It's greatly discounted. For those of you that just need to get some questions out of the way and need some advice, okay? that 40, 20 minutes conversation for $45 is not designed to do casework or fix your housing crisis, just to be clear. But I know a lot of people have done enough on their own and they're just going to clear about certain things. And I think that's appropriate in that situation. Otherwise, if you've got problems, you don't want to deal with it, you don't want to lose sleep, you're not getting anywhere, and the housing authority hasn't called you in a decade, or maybe you're going to be put out your apartment next week, then I would strongly advise you to consider casework. It doesn't need to be me. I'm not here to sell anybody anything. The longer you get out here and you can't get answers, the more you're going to realize, wow, maybe I should probably talk to somebody that's been in the field long enough. When your air conditioning breaks, you call the AC man. When your car breaks, you call a mechanic. And when you deal with the housing authority, unless you're going to deal with them over decades and decades and learn a lot of what's going on, then you might want to call a consultant, or you can call the HUD specialist. They always have 5 minutes to give you, but that's all they're probably going to give you. So I think the feds are great. I think that those HUD specialists, I think they're fantastic, but they're not going to, well, I'll let y'all learn the hard way. And the other option is 211. We have a lot of fantastic people over there. They hire them off of Craigslist. They give them a keyboard. They give them some dial-up, and then they give you 1 minute to state your case. They giggle and hang up on you. That's what 211 does. The other option with 211 is they'll connect you to services, which means they'll help give you a bunch of fucking phone numbers that go nowhere. People don't even answer them. Sometimes they don't even work. That is the other line. Or you could call the housing authority. The housing authority is always fully equipped with people that will talk to you. Well, you'll learn how they're going to talk to you. And so if you want them to actually spend an hour on the phone with you, let me know how that works out. You probably won't get that many answers. But again, I always tell people, stick your foot in that boiling hot water with all 3 recommendations I give you, and then come on back and come talk to me. And I always like to let you guys go out there, and when you drown a little bit and you can't swim, come on back around. You'll figure it out. Like I said, there's lots of free resources. Those are worthless, trust me. Beyond that, and I'm not trying to be cynical about this. It's just that I do have skeptics. So I always say, hey, man, give them a ring. See how well that does for you. That's like going to the free clinic and waiting for a month. All right, so Johnny Platt, good morning. How are you? Anyways, welcome back to the channel. I'm listening intently. Good. Queen Joe, I do not want to live in the projects near drug dealers. Who the hell does? I've just had a situation with a mother and son that could not leave their apartment after dark because literally the gang activity, they were right under this woman's window, gunshots every other day. Can you imagine? And now this place was clever enough to trick her into moving there. Look, the first option's never the best one. If the housing authority tells you, hey, we got something, you better make sure it's not project-based. Candy Girl, how are you? That's the interesting name of the day, Candy Girl. We have another person that pops in our chat occasionally that has a name with candy in it, so I always like a good, cool name on the channel. So Candy Girl says, hi, everyone. I'm listening and learning. I was approved for the HCB list in Winston-Salem. Well, congratulations. I'm glad to hear that somebody is getting along and getting their voucher. I'm trying to get ahead and need a bigger and more accessible place. So what you're looking for are accommodations. There's a whole subsection on it. You know what we really need to do this very, very next video? I'm finally going to do it. We're going to get deeply into accommodation, how you get them. Now, you would think that when you try to get an accommodation at the housing authority, you would think that these men and women that work there, they're reaching in their purse and they're getting out their private family jewels. They do not want to give accommodations. You would think that you were cutting off the circulation and air to their head. If they got to give you an accommodation, they will fight you. It's a bloody, well, again, most of you know the hustle, deny. So I'm going to show y'all some wonderful ways to compel under federal law and get accommodation after accommodation. And when they want to cooperate, we step it up HUD, step it up FHEO. We just keep going until the pressure becomes so much that the crazy people, the people of the housing authority will have no other choice just to simply give you what you want, if you have a valid reason. Now, I want to explain something. Not everybody that I deal with deserves the accommodation they wants. And so the thing is, I help people that need the help. By the way, if you saw that cat, that was one of my cat rescues. I thought I'd bring it up in the video real quick. Come here, girl. Poor thing. She was in the hospital for 10 days. I barely kept her alive. So anybody that knows my channel knows that I rescue not just people, but cats. Come here, mama. Come on, my girl. She's still suffering a little bit. She's got a little bit of head cold. Her little legs are shaved because they had IVs and catheters in her. We didn't think we would be able to keep her, but she's gained a good 6 ounces. She had really bad owners to try to starve her to death, okay? So we were really bringing her back. Her hair is starting to grow. So what happens when you lock somebody in a box? Their hair starts to fall out, besides other mental problems. But we're bringing her back to life. So I got to let her down. It's been a hard-fought battle with cats this year. You know, I've lost a few. So I know this is not what the video is supposed to be about, but I tell you what, my cats are always a big part. They're my little Hollywood stars, and I always like to include them in my videos in one way or another. So she's doing good. She's mounting well, and we're going to get her to recover. All right, back to the comments here, and then we'll swing on back to accommodations. So we're going to make a video about accommodations, and we're going to cover every conceivable topic about it to help y'all try to get through that. Give you a defense against people that literally don't want to give it to you. All right, moving on from that, Vaughn RS, hello, good morning. And let's see, Felicia Cooley, what program is there for someone 55 plus disabled? And do you have a list of tenant-based housing in Houston? So Felicia Cooley, what you need is www.affordablehousingonline.com. That covers all known subsidies in the United States. Can be searched by state and county. Covers everywhere, including Puerto Rico and Hawaii. Queen Joe, I want to live in a nice, quiet area. I think we all do, don't we? Candy Girl, get ahead on the list faster. I'm disabled and have a disabled child. So you have a double qualification for that. Sorry, Miss Kitty here is taking over the video. Y'all can't see her, but I can. Come on, Mama. I can't see the computer. Come on, girl. So, Category says, I'm sorry, Johnny Platt, can I get into FSS program sooner than 12 months? You know what? I'm going to make a note on that. We're going to talk about that program. There's a possibility, depending on the city and the counties that you're in, the system's under strain or not. So, let me just make a note of that real quick. And also, the accommodations will be the next video in about 1.5 days. So I'm making a little list here. Okay. Queen Joe, do I pay with a debit card for appointment? So our apartment software uses Stripe. Stripe is the same credit card processor as Walmart, Amazon, Apple, Google. So yes, you debit cards, whatever it may be. And just so you guys know, we are incorporated in the state of Texas. So we switched from LLC to incorporations. For those of you who are wondering about the legitimacy of what I do, we are filed with the state of Texas. Okay. All right. So moving on from that, Candy Girl says, hi, Kitty. Anyway, says, aw. And Candy Girl gives me a little frowny. Anyway, says, pretty Sonia Grimmstad, good to see you back on the channel. And Ms. Grimmstad goes on to say, HA requesting an affidavit of my homelessness. Well, it's not really, they say affidavit. You can run to any homeless shelter in town, walk up to reception, say that you're homeless. They'll print you out a 2-nickel or a 2-penny page within minutes, sign the bottom, and you're good to go. Kitty Girl, I hope she feels better soon. Same here. We put a lot of effort in Miss Kitty. So, all right. I'm a little bit late responding to some of these questions, so it may seem a bit out of order. Okay, so we're going back to talk about accommodations and, again, disability. So those of you, as a recap, when dealing with housing authorities, your primary aspect is 18 to 61, Section 811. That should be your primary focus with your disability. Please do not bring your filing cabinet with you. People tried to forge paperwork over all these years since the early 70s. So they'll give you a form, you'll take it to your doctor, and you'll have that conversation with your doctor, and they'll check that box that says you've got a disability. And that'll be how it works out, okay? For those of you that are homeless, imminently homeless, or out there struggling, and you're about to be put out your home, and you desperately need housing quickly, you have EHV, Emergency Housing Vouchers. That is administered by COC, Continuum of Care, better known as CES, which is Coordinated Entry System. And so that is another one that considers the same line of disabilities as I mentioned earlier in the video. And then those of you that are seeking out subsidies, which is typically 55 plus, and in that regard, you'd only need to have the approval of the doctor And I think that I went over for about, I don't know, 15 minutes earlier in the video of all the different case law, as well as the actual HUD's actual listing of the primary disabilities and what other ones could be considered by the housing authority. Okay, so taking a look back at this comment section here. Sonia Grimmstad says, healing vibes to your kiddos. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Mary, Mother of God, Mary Mother. That's my second interesting name, Mary Mother of God. So I'm glad to have me in the channel. Mr. and Mrs. Whitten, thank you for rescuing. She looks like she's a Siamese. So I always do that. I bring these cats in the video, and it becomes more about my kitties than it does what I'm usually talking about. So since I've been rattling on for 36 minutes about disabilities, those of you looking for more information, you probably want to rewind. So about her, yeah, she is Siamese. I have two Siamese. They don't get along either. It's like two housing authorities trying to do portability. So she spends every night with me. She's still a very young cat. She was impregnated early as well. This is what happens when you have breeders blocking cats in little chicken cages in a dark room and driving the cat completely mad. There are a lot of people when they take their last breath that nothing better. I can't think of anything better to do with those breeders than to heat up some good cooking oil and drop their fucking ass in it. I hope their last breath is a miserable one, because I see so much abuse with animal and people. And I deal with it constantly with these cats, trying to rescue them and restore them to whatever level of standard I can give them back and bring their health back. I know this little girl here, this Siamese I'm dealing with that I showed you earlier, 10 days ICU to undo what the last breeder attempted to do. So it's terrible. Anyways, let's move it on. Ms. Williams, can you put the website up? You mentioned, sure. So let's do affordable housing online. Give me just a moment, guys, and I'm going to get those links up for you. Probably should have had the link ready for you, but you know how that goes. Okay, this is going to be your subsidy search. This is a federal subcontractor of HUD, which means it will give you likely every known property in the U.S. for subsidy. Paste, and there you go. Now, for case law on discrimination and other issues related to Section 8 and having a disability or getting qualified for it, you would want to take a look at case law. And I would like to link you up with the qualifications or a disability overview per federal law. I'm going to link that up now. Bit generic, but it's good enough to get you going, okay? The goal of the video is not to go through every subsection of law. It's to get you started, to get you interested, and to give you a little bit of inspiration. A lot of you have given up prematurely on improving your disability in order to utilize it for housing. So I'm hoping to re-inspire you in that area. Another thing I'm going to put up here real quick, for those of you that have any interest in casework, you feel it's appropriate, you checked out the reputation of me and my company and feel that you could benefit from that, you may make that informed decision on your own. Again, I'm not here to sell anything, so I'll just link up me, the website, and our booking software if you so need it and you're tired of dealing with the housing authority. So it's there for you guys. I think that's really what I wanted to cover in the video, and I certainly have appreciated the a lot of attention you guys have given me throughout the video here. I apologize for the first 5 minutes being silent. I do occasionally forget about the microphone needing turning it on. So now what you guys are really going to want to join me for, and this is all people that seek housing, all people that are considering vouchers, is the very next video. Today is Thursday, and so Sunday we're going to do accommodations. There are a lot of things available to about 89% of you, whether you have a disability or not. And so we're going to cover every single thing you could potentially get. Please do not treat this like a supermarket where you're going in with your shopping cart hoping to get every little thing you can just because it's free. You don't want to do that. You don't want to take from people that actually need it. What I want y'all to do is take that information, see if there's some things that could benefit you and improve your life. But if it's just going to turn into a hustle, that where you're just trying to add accommodations for the wrong reasons, and I'm not going to further help you with that, okay? But the video will be in quite good detail, and it's going to be intuitive, not counterintuitive to what the housing authority might tell you. In other words, they probably prefer I didn't make that video, and I'm sure that they will likely be adversarial once I publish it. Moving on. Mary Jones, 7,000. Can they do that and get help? Miss Jones, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. I'm gonna scroll back. Section 8 is making me pay back 7,000. Okay, so right now, Miss Jones, the only thing you're saying is you owe money to somebody that has nothing to do with housing. I don't know you. I don't know anything about your case details. I don't know why you owe those people. Repeatedly saying that in the channel is not going to absolve you of your problem. If you don't, you need to get with somebody, possibly a legal aid, as the other person had mentioned, an attorney, or I could potentially help you if I knew more about it. But repetitiously going through that in the live chat's not going to resolve your situation. Number two, we do not, absolutely repeat, we do not going to get into deep case details in a live video. This is a matter of privacy, okay? So general questions are welcome, but we're not going to get into domestic violent cases and other serious issues inside the video because this is on a public platform. It's not allowed. All right, guys, I've enjoyed talking with y'all, and we'll be, like I said, Sunday, we're going to do accommodations, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that one, okay? All right, it's good seeing y'all. Have a great day.